Hello to all of you and welcome to the AGU Fall Meeting 2020. Today, technically, it is the day number 6 of the fall meeting, and I think we all agree that up to now we had a very busy week, productive week, of course, online, and it is a first as an Earth and space science experience. So. Welcome really to everybody. So this week, as you know, is focused on our community. We saw the so-called fun science roll call yesterday. It's a video, so if you haven't seen it, please just do it. Take a few minutes to watch. It is, of course, now soon week number 2 of the fall meeting that's coming up, and this will be the focus on the science. Now, as you know, AGU has completed a new strategic plan, and this plan really wants to turn the science, our science, from usable to really used by people, used by policymakers, used by decision makers in general. And of course, we see that the importance of that. We see it, for example, with COVID-19, where politicians, decision makers need to really take action, make decisions based on the input from the science. And of course, we also see the danger because, as you have noticed, probably very often research is used to mislead, confuse people. And of course, we as scientists, we are very frustrated by this. So that's why it's really important for science to be communicated, to be accessible to a lot of people, and to do it across border. In fact, we have to work really across border, across disciplines, across language, racial and ethnic identities. We have to go through age and gender and other demography and demographics. And so for us at AGU, being inclusive, being open to the diversity of the population, of the people, of the discipline is very important. And so having a diversity of voices, it means that we need to work together from our own perspective, our own method. We're all different, but we all complement each other. And it is important that we do that to find solutions that society can endorse, can accept, and can use to solve the crisis that we are facing at the moment. And so when geoscientists or geoscience becomes more accessible, we will be able to bring them with a lot of thinkers together to talk about the future of our society. So there are different ways we can make geosciences accessible to others. And frankly, scientists have to play an important role, of course, but the citizens also have a very important role to play. And this is why today we are really pleased to introduce Hilda and Sunniva. You will see them in a second. They are adventurers. They decided to go away from where the people are in a remote region, in a place called Bamsebu, which is in the high Arctic, in Norway, essentially, and 140 kilometers away from civilization. So it is important to hear what people who retreat in the far the far north, how they see the planet evolving. And so they're really serving as polar ambassador. They highlight the changes that are occurring in this part of the world, and why these changes really matter for all of us, and what we can do from their perspective to protect the planet. So, like all of us, COVID has changed their plans. They were supposed to be there a longer period of time, and in fact, even more now, they have to stay far away from COVID, and they extended their time over there by 6 months. And we are really fortunate to have them, in fact, to join us from there, from Barmsebu, part of northern Norway. So they're not formally trained scientists. Hilda and Sunniva are teaching. They like to share their experience. They like to be a citizen of the world. And if you not follow them on social media, well, you will first listen to them, but I recommend really that you look at their daily activities over there through the social media. So they are a perfect mix of learning, but also have fun in this region. They do amazing photographies, and they compose videos, and I'm really happy to say that they're coming to AGU this year. And I would like you to join me and welcome Hilda and Sunniva. So welcome to both of you.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you so much to the AGU community for inviting us to participate today. We really appreciate it. It's a huge value to us, to our project, Hearts in the Ice, and to us personally to be acknowledged by all of you. Such a very credible organization such as AGU. So thank you.
Yeah, and this pouch has been with us for the last year at Bamsebu, and it was given to us by a person we collaborate in NASA, Liz McDonald, and through her project Aurorasaurus. So yeah, thank you, Liz, for putting us in contact with AGU. And this is where we are. You can all see where the North Pole are in the middle of the globe there. And just below you have Greenland, and east of Greenland you have a small island called Svalbard. It's situated in between the north of Norway and the North Pole, and we're actually closer to the North Pole than to the mainland of Norway. And we have been living there for a year now, and it's a small trapper's cabin built in 1930 without running water or electricity.
So what we wanted to do is, just because Hilda and I, Hearts in the Ice, the name came from our the fact that we are both in love with ice and icy places. Collectively, I think it's fair to say that we've spent about 50 years, we're dating ourselves, in the Arctic and the Antarctic. And both polar regions right now are facing incredible obstacles as it relates to both the ice and the biodiversity of the species. So through the next 35 minutes or so, we're just going to share what we've been doing as citizen scientists and what's happening up in the Arctic. We know that both the Southern Ocean and the Arctic Ocean are absolutely vital for all of the food available in the food chain globally, and both oceans actually regulate the climate around the world. So it's very important for us to keep an eye on, very close eye on, what's happening in the Arctic and the Antarctic. There's a tremendous loss of ice decline, and especially up here in the Arctic. It's been declining more rapidly in the last few years than we've ever seen in recorded history. And I think it's fair to say that up in Svalbard, the ice decline is
4 times as fast
as anywhere else, anywhere else on the planet. Actually, it reflects heat, and also species need the sea ice to actually to breed and to survive, and especially the polar bears. And we're also seeing a temperature increase in both the Arctic and the Antarctic. And when we were here last, just a few months ago, it had the highest recorded day in Svalbard that they've ever had here. This should not happen. The permafrost is actually heating up. And then, of course, the ocean. We're overfishing krill in the Antarctic, and we're trying to understand phytoplankton and the breeding of phytoplankton. And then microplastics. That's a big topic on everybody's mind today, of course, with all of the overuse. Fishing nets have been found drifting up on shore. And then, of course, a lot of the species mistake the microplastics in the ocean for a food source. And then they eventually starve to death.
And communication has been one of our core stones in our projects. And we are the first, actually, civilians that test out a satellite device like this. It's a mission link and has given us the opportunity to talk to kids all over the world. And also, actually, in fact, the education piece has been very important for us, and also the collaboration with organizations like Homeward Bound. And here we are talking to them. This is 100 female leaders that went to Antarctica last winter, and we spoke to them when we were at the North Pole and they were at the South Pole, and discussing how to lead the climate change discussion forward. Very powerful and extremely, I mean, they had midnight sun and we had complete darkness.
And I'll just share with Homeward Bound, they are an organization dedicated to increasing awareness around climate change, just as we are with Hearts on the Ice. And over a 10-year span, they're introducing 1,000 women in STEM to what's happening in our world as it relates to climate change. They're policymakers, they are in marketing, they are scientists, they are activists. And so they are just an example of the powerful collaboration we have around the world with organizations like AGU as well. And here with our Wings flag, we were really honored to be actually a flag carrier for Wings World Quest. They're dedicated to highlighting women in exploration and science. And we had a special little ceremony. It was hosted by Katie Couric, and Sylvia Earle was honored as with a Lifetime Achievement Award. And we were honored as one of their flag carriers. So it's just, for us, collaboration at this time in a climate crisis is absolutely critical. And we value that greatly as it relates to how we can enhance everybody's understanding of what's happening.
Imagine leaving your family, friends, and the comforts of home for a trip to the top of the world, where civilization is almost 100 miles away, and everything you need to survive has to fit in a 215 square foot space. Two women did that in the name of science.
And right now we are in Bamsebu, a small trapper's cabin built 90 years ago.
This tiny remote cabin is home to citizen scientists Hilda and Sunniva and Sunniva Sorvi. It has no electricity or running water.
Come on in. This is both our workout studio, our office, our deluxe office space, my bedroom, dining room, and a living room. It's all in one. These two containers have ice and snow in there. And when it melts, that's how we get our fresh water.
The two co-founded Hearts in the Ice to foster a global conversation about climate change.
We had two main goals to be up here. One was to collect data for a group of international scientists studying climate change, and also to connect with school kids around the world.
Among the projects is one for NASA on clouds that could impact the Earth's temperature, and another one involves collecting saltwater samples.
And we have also collecting sea ice samples. So we drill a hole through the ice, and underneath the sea ice there are microorganisms that the scientists believe is extremely important for the whole ecosystem in the ocean.
Today is March 9th, and it's the first time that I see the sun since October.
Doing all that data collection was made more difficult by 3 months of darkness and a harsh winter.
It was an unbelievably difficult, cold, dark winter.
It was all the way down to 34 minus and the wind chill 45 minus. We had hurricanes, several hurricanes, and the whole hut was shivering.
And you're wondering if it's strong enough to actually withstand the hurricane winds.
But they believe their efforts are well worth it.
We can't wait any longer. We've seen with COVID that the change is happening fast, that the planet is taking an absolute breather because of all of us, and we're all needed right now. So just that was an interesting little piece for us. We had quite a bit of press this past year around what we were doing and the fact that we were so far away from civilization. We became self-described isolation experts. So it was kind of interesting during a time of COVID that we were sought out for tips on how to stay friends in a 20 square meters trapper's cabin, 215 square feet. We did not sit idly by for the entire year that we were up at Bumsaboo. We actually had quite a bit that we did. Just to very quickly give you a snapshot of, in terms of citizen science, what we did this past year. And every single one of these projects, as you know, all of you that are watching this might well understand, involves a tremendous amount of equipment, a bit of a learning curve.
Absolutely.
And then following all the protocol. And so we were very, very diligent about every single thing we did. Polar bear encounters, wildlife observation is a big part of what we were doing, as well as flying a drone, collecting insects in the spring when the tent was up, ice core samples, cloud observations, NASA Aurora time lapse, observing a NASA rocket launch, which was absolutely incredible,
Very
collecting
cool.
plastic, and then all the wildlife that we observed. We had sponsors for our project, obviously, and then as science partners. And, you know, this started a little bit organically for us because with both of our experience in the expedition cruise industry, we were aware of the term citizen science. And it's an active thing on board many ships in the polar regions. And so that's what we did. We actually just picked up the phone and called Scripps and called UNIS and called NASA, three entities that were already involved in citizen science on board the ships, and just said, you know, we're going to be at Bumsaboo for 9 months. It was originally 9 months. Is there anything we can do for you? And so it grew and it became a very powerful like a tool to connect us with school kids around the world, and then also the global community.
Yeah, and what we did when it comes to plastic, the current leads everything up to Svalbard. Plastic, all marine debris, and also logs and driftwood. That was very handy for us. That actually kept us warm throughout the winter. We collected it, we chopped it up with a chainsaw and chopped it up with an axe. So it was very, very much something we needed for the whole winter. But what we don't need is all the plastic coming on shore on Svalbard. It's actually something we have been doing with our, throughout the winter. We were gathering plastic. We found this looks like an iceberg, but it's actually plastic. So we collected everything we could, and we have been collecting plastic with our guests in the expedition cruise industry for the last 10-15 years in a clean up Svalbard project. And I think last summer it was tons of tons, and to get all together, I think we've collected 40 tons of plastic. So, and the plastic actually makes more damage than just the visual part of it. It's the birds eat it, and this is a fulmar, and 9 out of 10 fulmars, they die out of starvation because they think that the small pieces of plastic they find is food. So they actually starve.
And I'll just share, this image is hard to look at,
It's
actually.
difficult. Yeah.
I'll just share that for the first time this year, there will be very little in the way of picking up plastic in Svalbard because the travel industry has come to a screeching halt. So that's one thing in a little area that we're in that we're going to continue to do, is try to pick up as much as we can. These little white dots.
Yeah, and actually we can go back a little bit just to, it's so devastating to look at, but also say one more thing about other animals that are affected by the plastic. You see the nets there, the green stuff. The reindeers their antlers are, I don't know, they're itching in their antlers and they get stuck in this. and they actually die. So it's many land-based mammals and sea-based, marine-based mammals that suffer.
The hut that we were staying in is 215 square feet, really, really tiny. And it was built in 1934 as a trapper's cabin for beluga hunting, and they completely decimated the population back then. If you were to come to Bumsaboo, and we wish some of you could come up and visit us, because it does get a little lonely up there, you would see 11 piles of beluga bones scattered along the beach. And it's a really telling sign of the devastation. But this image right here was for us an absolutely eye-dropping moment where we had hundreds of belugas in the bay and as close as 5 meters from the shore where we were. And this is a great success story. So this very quick little image that I'll play, and it's just showing the sea ice minimum and just how quickly that changes up in the Arctic. It is a very telling example of how quickly we are losing a resource that we cannot afford to lose. And we know that with the loss of sea ice, we're disrupting the harmony and the ecosystem of our entire planet.
Yeah, and one thing is what we see, like polar bears, which is very visual to us, but everything that we don't see is probably a bigger problem for us, the eco balance in the ocean.
And Svalbard is between 2005 and 2010 on your map.
Yeah, it is.
One of the species most threatened by the ice that is a really visual example for all of us are the polar bears. We had 53 polar bear encounters, which was absolutely incredible for us. You know, there's so much that we can't see that's also being affected by the lack of sea ice, which we're studying, like collecting phytoplankton.
Yeah, and this is a visit that we had about this time of year. We are coming back now in the same time as this was taken.
Dette kameraet samtidig som kveldlyset. Og se isbjørnen der. Jeg kan finne han for deg. Ja. Skal vi se, der har han. Ja. Bikke han litt ned. Skal du holde han der? Ja. Skal jeg hente... Bra,
Hilde, kan ikke du bare ta et bilde først? We always have polar bears. They're
and
our neighbors.
This was the same. We were outside walking, and in front of us we had something moving. This image is taken with it's a night vision, but it was quite dark, and we saw something running away, and we wondered if it was a polar bear. So we walked closer to the area where we saw it disappeared, and sure enough, there was a reindeer that was catched by the polar bear.
Og da skjønner vi hvorfor vi har hatt en isbjørn her. Det er rett og slett en isbjørn som jakter på reinsdyr. Og det er ferskt blod. Han har dratt han med ut her. Så han har rett og slett jaktet han. Det er ikke et dødt reinsdyr. Så han tipper han har vært på kanten her. Reinsdyr har stått her og beita.
Reinsdyr har barset før han...
Ja. Ja.
Vi må dra, Hilde.
Ja, dette er...
Det er sikkert at han kom over kanten.
Han kom over kanten, og dette er liksom maten hans. Det er en ung bjørn, men allikevel, vi skal ikke være i nærheten av maten hans. Så, men nok et eksempel på at isbjørn tilpasser seg en trist skjebne, at det blir mindre sel, og han jakter reinsdyr. Og jakter han reinsdyr, så kan han også jakte folk.
Yeah, one of the things that we did as citizen scientists, and this was for UNIS and the Norsk Polar Institute, we were observing the wildlife in the area, recording, you know, what we saw, when we saw it, what size. And one thing especially interesting was have the female polar bears given birth. There is a man by the name of Jon Orsch that we've been working with at UNIS. And he is a polar bear expert in the region. And he's been tracking this female since 2006, I believe.
2013.
2013.
Mhm.
And they were really curious to know if she actually had given birth to this little cub. So do you think we were a little excited when we actually rode our snowmobiles into this particular area where we thought maybe she was, and sat there in quiet, and we just waited, and then all of a sudden she appears, and all of a sudden this little cub appears. It was apparently 4 months old, maybe 15 kilos, and what an absolutely tender experience for us to observe. And it feels, you know, as people who are really keen on photography, it was, wow, look at this, and light and everything. And as keen observers to the wildlife, wow, what an amazing experience. But there was really a part of us also that felt like we were intruding on their environment. So we were very, very, very careful about that. You see the device around the neck, it's a tracking device. And that's something that they actually sedate them, and they put the device on. It's harmless. It's quite heavy actually, but they are able to get it off their neck if they want to. And that enables them to record, you know, body temperature and distance and the health of the species. So it's a very important part of our understanding of the changes and the impact on the polar bears.
Yeah, and this little fellow, he was very full of life and so active, and we were there for 1.5 hours just observing them, and they were so playful, both of them. But then we saw, we got
almost.
Yeah, she came back on my birthday, actually, the 13th of July. And before that, we have heard by Jon Orsch that she probably didn't have the cub anymore because of the pattern. She was traveling too fast. And when she came back, she just came out of the water, just below the hut, and passed us a few meters from the hut. But she looked healthy, but the cub didn't make it this time. So that's sad. But here is the map of her movements the last 1.5 years. And she has been out in the ice. We had a lot of ice this year. Yeah, and the scientists thought that the cub was gone. Another one of the citizen science projects that we do is ice core sampling, and it's for those of you who've done it, you know what's involved. It requires some heavy equipment, and we were happy to have a Lynx snowmobile because we need to go out on the ice, and often in the dark, and then drill into the ice. The longest was 81 centimeters, and what they're really interested in is the last 1 to 3 centimeters, which is really important to study the microorganisms that actually live in the little brine channels, that they work their way up to the brine channel in that very low section of the ice. So we've sent all our samples to UNIS. They're studying it now. We've sent all the phytoplankton samples to Allison at Scripps, and they're studying it now. Yeah, and we also did, yeah, as you can see here, it was throughout the winter and also the spring. And as soon as we were able to have the boat outside, I think almost until Christmas, we took phytoplankton samples for Allison. And I learned so much about the phytoplankton. I mean,
what did you learn?
This little organism that doesn't have the ability to swim, they really thrive in cold and salty water. And now the water gets sweeter and warmer, and that's really challenging for them. And why is it challenging? Well, what I learned is that actually the phytoplankton produce more than 60% of the oxygen. They use CO2 to produce oxygen, which is a fantastic thing, and we are so dependent on that. And what we wanted to find out, or give the scientists data for is whether they actually also produce oxygen during the dark season.
And we don't know that yet, so it'll be interesting to get some of the findings. We, you know, the Northern Lights, I almost have, I mean, we spent quite a bit of time in the polar night, which is 3 months long. And my first experience in the polar night, it's not your first rodeo. It is not for the faint of heart. But, you know, dark inside and we have lights and candles. And then when you step outside, you have a world of magic above. And we don't look north for the Northern Lights. We are under them, showered by them. And the experience was never the same. It was really incredible to you know, almost on cue at 9 o'clock at night and then around midnight. So because we had, you know, no sunrise and no sunset, it actually did not matter that we stayed up so late.
No, and that was actually very cool.
Routine was important.
But it was also very cool that Liz McDonald, she told us that we were closer to the Northern Lights than to the settlement of Longyearbyen.
Yeah, and apparently the lowest bound of the aurora, 120 kilometers, and we were 140 kilometers away from Longyearbyen.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll walk you through very quickly just what it's like to be a rocket citizen scientist, which was probably the coolest thing we've ever been called. But this was, you know, we learned, Liz put us in touch with the people at NASA that were actually really had invested a copious amounts of time and money to time a rocket launch from Andøya. And they had a window of about a month that they were waiting for the right auroral conditions and the right wind to be able to do this. And so we were on standby from 9 o'clock in the morning until 1 o'clock in the afternoon every day for that little period. And then we receive a text message on our Iridium satellite phone, which says, as you're looking at it, launch in 7 minutes. So we dressed, we had to, you know, dress in under 7 minutes and get all our equipment and go outside and photographed the rocket launch and what they were releasing. And all of you that are scientists would know a lot more about this really specifically than we would, but they launched barium gases. And the interaction of those gases with the actual lights at that time and the auroral activity will feed them information on movement and patterns. And there's so much to be learned from this in terms of understanding the impact of magnetism and the lights on perhaps our climate. So it was very interesting for us. And of course, we had to stage a replication of a historic photo that was taken in 1920. And this is us on 2019 as polar pioneers and citizen scientists. And of course, the lights, when we go back now, we will be going into a dark period, another 3+ months of darkness. And we will continue with our cloud observation for NASA when we can see them, and as well continue with Aurorasaurus for Liz at NASA as well.
Yeah, and the Citizen Science Project has become very important for us. And for this coming winter, we are going to make contribution data collection to the 7 Citizen Science projects that we are doing. And it really feels meaningful to us. And we're actually very proud of being part of such big science. So we have divided all the Citizen Science projects per month. And we have done the same thing with the education. And the education outreach is so much fun. We work together with a platform called Exploring by the City of Pants in Canada. And Joe is our host. And we reach out to classrooms all over the world. And together with experts, we share knowledge about climate care themes from, weather and technology, all you can see there. And it really, really is inspiring for us to be talking to the kids and sharing all this information together with the experts.
It's quite something, as Hilda was saying, just to be able to collaborate with, across geographic boundaries and across ages and across disciplines, because wow, we're living in a time where we can't reverse the trends. I mean, the climate has always, our planet's always been changing. It's sort of ebbs and flows, and we have the elasticity to be able to handle some extremes. But we're at a time right now where the extremes are continuing. You see it in California with the wildfires, and I could go on and on, but I won't depress you all with that. But all this to say that the more we're involved and the more we learn and the more we understand, and AGU is standing on the front end of delivering a lot of that information. So we're so happy to have a little time to present with the audience today. Just why we are standing up as female leaders at this time of a climate crisis and engaging people in conversation through what we're experiencing. We're just going to walk you through some images, and I will stop talking and Hilda will stop talking for the last few. And then when we get to the last slide, we'll just be absolutely ready to take any question, and there's no question that can be off the table.
Yeah, just to comment this one, this is where we pull the logs, the driftwood coming from Siberia with the currents, and we take it back to the hut and it keeps us warm. I need to comment on this one too. This is our surroundings. You can see the hut there, and you can also see some small dots in front of the hut, which is our neighbors, the reindeers. Can't see any polar bears in the picture, but they are around. So this is the fjord, Van Coilen Fjord, and the mountains surrounding us.
That hut, you see the hut that Hilda just mentioned, and then look to the right and you see another little building, and that polar bear in the dark was right in front of that building. That's where that was.
Yeah, and Northern Light, I've been living on Svalbard for 25 years, and the Northern Light we had was absolutely stunning. No artificial light pollution. We're exercising every day.
Well, thank you all very much. We have a lot of work to do, and it's really clear that no one person can solve any one problem alone, which is why Hilda and I started Hearts in the Ice. We are writing a book. It should come out in December. It's on our website, and we also are working on a second documentary about the power of collaboration, and AGU will absolutely be featured in that. And thank you very much for hosting us.
Yeah, thank you so much. And for us, ordinary civilians and citizens, it feels so important to be part of the solution for building the gap between us and you guys. So thank you so much, all of you.
Wonderful presentation, but also wonderful adventure. So I was really interested by the picture you showed with your little house in the middle of this beautiful landscape, beautiful sky, beautiful images. And so you staying there alone for months. Can you tell us a bit about your experience being isolated from the rest of the world? I mean, how do you feel? I mean, how is it tough? Is it tough? Is it pleasant? How do you feel?
Great question, Guy. It's we feel little. You feel we were actually there. The plan was for 9 months, and we brought food and supplies and equipment in for 9 months. And with COVID, we stayed for a year. So we were 140 kilometers away from the nearest town. In the polar night, which is 3 months long, nobody could get to us. No boat because of the ice, and no snowmobile because of maybe not enough ice over the glacier. So, you know, you take all of that and you put us inside this tiny little trapper's cabin that was not insulated, that had no running water and no electricity, with solar and wind. And you sort of have a recipe for a very challenging dynamic between two people, and a very challenging circumstance physically, emotionally, and mentally. So, you know, it was an experience that I think, given our past experience, we were sort of maybe the best two people to pull something like this off. You know, Hilda spent 2+ decades in the Arctic, and I've spent a lot of time in the Antarctic. We've both, you know, stepped on the edge of ourself in terms of experiences and capabilities and developing, you know, the right tools for our toolbox. So we felt prepared, but nothing can really prepare you for an isolated experience like that. So it was a day-to-day exercise of staying positive and making sure that whatever you were thinking that wasn't good for you didn't stay too long. So we didn't give ourselves the ability or the time to actually stew with negativity or bad energy, because it can take over, especially in a small place and especially in an environment where you have polar bears outside. So our safety was always so important for us. And we were reminded of that with the hurricane winds and the, you know, record cold temperatures. It wasn't a comfortable experience, but it also wasn't uncomfortable. We learned to find comfort in the discomfort. We had enough clothing, we had enough food.
So a real human experience. Let me ask you another question. You've been mentioning citizen science. Now, many scientists are a bit, you know, doubtful that this is really useful. But of course, I think you have convinced us that your role is extraordinary. So could you tell us a bit how you think citizen science could help the community, could help humanity in general?
I can start off with that. Well, I think, I mean, citizens, we are all over the world. We are everywhere where the change happens. And the scientists are not everywhere. So I think as long as we can make a contribution that's valuable, that's after a record or that we are told how to do it. So the data that we are collecting are actually valuable for the scientists. I think we can actually make a huge contribution, not just the two of us, but everyone we encourage and inspire to be citizen science. And I also think that ordinary people like us gives the scientists even more credibility, or that we, by sharing our passion and time doing this, we sort of underline the importance of what you guys are doing. So
yeah, that very well said. And I'll add one quick thing. I think that citizen science citizen scientists have the ability to really affect policy change. I mean, look at all of the big movements around the world that have really affected, you know, either election results or really big policy change around the world. It has been the masses, you know, the war of the swarm, so to speak. And I think we're at a time right now where engaging the public and understanding what's going on is really important. And we're kind of like the bridge. We're the little bridge between all those smart people, the scientists, and the average citizens who maybe never studied science, which we didn't. Interested in it, yes. Really curious, yes. But it wasn't our vocation. So we're the little bridge between those two.
So all the citizens should carry a scientific message in one way or another, because they observe, they think, they talk, they communicate. And you are a wonderful example of that. Let me ask you another question. You have been there many times, and you have witnesses essentially the changes in the Arctic region. Now, if I go to our models, we see that, you know, ice is melting, the temperature is rising, the ozone is depleted, etc., etc. But that's very theoretical, intellectual. So you are there. Do you see any changes?
Oh, yes, so much. I came to Svalbard in 1995, and I've been living there for, now it's actually more than 25 years. And 15 years ago, I started to see really big changes. I saw I mean, the ice, the sea ice was more or less gone. We got ice on land. We had rain during winters and had more ice on land. It started to be warmer, and we had grass. I mean, when I came here, they were actually trying to grow grass and had studies around grass types that could survive in the Arctic. And now it's green everywhere. We see polar bears are struggling. We see reindeers are struggling during winter because they're hard to get to their food. So, and then I experienced the avalanche in Longyearbyen in 2015. And the house we're sitting in, that me and Sunniva are sitting in just now, one house was between us and the big avalanche that took 12 of my neighbor houses away. And 17 people was buried inside their houses. And a 2-year-old and a 43-year-old man died. And I was very much involved, and that had never happened in Longyearbyen before. And that was when I realized that this must be the first time in history that climate change actually take lives. So that was really, really a strong experience for me.
So a lot of people, of course, are considering taking advantage from those changes. We hear that oil exploitation is a possibility. We see ships with tourists cruising, passing in the Northwest Passage and even the Northeastern Passage. So suddenly it seems that the Arctic become not the far west, but the far north for a lot of economic initiatives. So what's your view on that? I mean, this is a bit frightening.
It's very frightening, and it's a doomsday scenario if any of that continues, because look at us right now, 2020, and the expedition cruise industry has come to a screeching halt with all of the good that some of these ships do in terms of the citizen science projects and cleaning up the plastic. That's all great. But I think we're at a time where we really need to rethink how we are living and how we are exploring and how we are experiencing our world. We are living at a time where we can no longer continue to take. We can't exploit anymore. And if we continue to do that, then we are escalating a trend that cannot be reversed, which is a disruption in our entire ecosystem. So I fear for increased marine traffic, for all the potential oil spills from that, or more litter. There's lots of examples of that on the beaches and shorelines already. And the tourist industries that both Hilda and I are very passionate about and involved in, there is an incredible opportunity for operators now to step up to the plate and for destinations to actually rethink what is a cap or to have some sort of regulation around number of visitors per landing site or per area. But as travelers, that sign up for some of these expedition trips, there's an opportunity to really engage in transformational experiences that is not about visiting a destination. It's about maybe becoming ambassadors for that destination as you visit. So not only are we trying to really elevate the conversation around citizen science, we're also trying to elevate the conversation around being ambassadors of destinations. To protect the area and understand the history, understand the ecology, biology, et cetera, et cetera.
So in the headquarters of, I don't know, companies in New York or in Beijing or wherever, plans are being put together to use natural resources in the Arctic. We just talked about it. Now you're two women in a little house in the middle of the Arctic. And you have in front of you the economic world, basically the financial world, with a lot of interest and a lot of gains that are inside. Do you think you can stop them, just you two, or do you think it's a lost battle? So tell us a little bit how you want to be.
Great question.
Great question. I can try. I will start that one. It's It's challenging, but I really, both of us really believe in the power of one. And we started with just the two of us, but this has grown to a huge platform, collaborating with big organizations, with you scientists, and with the industries that has a voice out there. And we think that if we are able to engage people around the world in what we believe in and how important it is to protect what we love, the natural world, we think that we are able to inspire people to be involved in our thoughts and in the end, decision makers that could actually make a real change. And I think that every one of us has a responsibility to do a change in our own life, in our own backyard, to make the contribution that we need to do a turnaround in this process.
Yeah, nicely said. And Guy, that's a very challenging question, eh?
That's why I asked this question.
Yes. Okay. Thanks. It is, we are two women, and we're only two women, and we are in a little hut, and we have this little device that enables us to communicate with the rest of the world and engage across disciplines between all these stakeholders. But, I think that one of the key things that we have realized is that we are strong, and we are powerful, and we have loud voices. And we are leaders at the front end of this dialogue and collaboration between science and the individual's understanding. But there are the big players that you just talked about. And we want to hold leadership accountable. I think one of the things that we stand for is really making sure that people out there are not asleep at the wheel. We are at a time when we absolutely need to look at who is representing us. Not just our state and our country, but also our planet, and hold leadership accountable for the choices that they are making on our behalf. And so, that's how we will slowly affect, change minds of people, maybe engage them to become curious and play an active role and participate, and then slowly change happens. But it is not an overnight thing, and there's no one size fits all for this problem.
Well, thank you very much, Sunniva and Hilda. It was a real interesting presentation. I think it was, even for me, emotional to see how you are really trying to defend the planet. And I think a lot of women and a lot of men who are listening to you will be thinking about you when you go and isolate yourself for several months over there. You will be in our heart, in our mind, and we wish you all the best. Really, all the best to you, and thanks again for this wonderful time that we spent with you. Bye-bye.
Merci énormément.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our citizen scientist, I'm Sunniva.
And I'm Hilda.
Here we are. It's almost the end of November, and we'll be here at Bumsaboo until May 2021.
Yesterday we were outside walking along the beach and found a big fishing net.
We've got ocean plastics, ocean debris, phytoplankton, drone flying, and mammal observation.
And this is some netting that we found on the beach yesterday.
And look at this, there's already a bird that's been caught in there. Really, so much trash that we'll be collecting in the next couple of months.
And the reindeer would have been struggling if they got this caught in their antlers.
And thank you so much to Canada Goose for being education partner for this month's theme of polar bears. No polar bears yet.
This winter is so different from last year. We've just had a few days of rain, so the whole tundra is covered by ice, and the sea is open behind us. That's supposed to be full of ice just now.
Just a little bit of snow. Right now there's absolutely no ice at the end of November, and last year there was almost a full fjord of ice. We did have our infrared night vision scope, and we saw several reindeer and an Arctic fox. I was able to see that there are 10 reindeer. We've got 5 out this way to the south and then 5 out that way. It's an infrared scope, so we're able to see in the dark. And this drone has been flown in minus 20 something temperatures. and we're measuring surface sea ice temperature and land temperature over time. And way up there in the sky is a drone coming down from its pre-programmed flight. And here comes the drone in for its little landing.
Okay, so this windmill has been blowing like crazy the last 2 days and provided us some very important electricity for the inside. Use our link commissioning for our communication out in the world and also our synthesis science work.
Up here we have our tails missionlink satellite dish, and these wires across here come into this hole right here. And it's amazing that it actually works, but it does, and it gives us communication to the outside world, which is fantastic, thanks to Marlink. So we'll take you for a quick little spin around Bumsaboo. This is our main room. This is Hilda's side of the couch over here. That's our kitchen. Here we have all our clothes, all our equipment, books, things. That's my bed right there. This is our living room, dining room, training studio, and also where we process all of our phytoplankton.
All our communications.
This is where it's all happening.
And we are citizen science, and then we have it's in courtesy of Hurtigruten and Eunice.
Thank you for joining us for today's inspirational keynote. Before we conclude the plenary, please welcome our special guest, AGU's climate rapper, who will summarize what he's heard around the meeting so far today, Baba Brinkman.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be back. I once again listened to Sunniva and Hilda's talk, obviously, and Michael Mann's Stephen Schneider lecture yesterday, and then just sort of foraged around all the various talks and workshops and everything this morning and composed an original rap summary of the day so far, the last 24 hours, let's say. So, okay, if you saw this yesterday, you see I'm going to be doing this daily. And here comes round two. Let's do it. Yeah. Shout out to the AGU. Shout out to everybody watching online. 227 people I can see right now live. This conference is insanely complicated and huge. There's no way to navigate, so I'm just doing my best. I feel like I'm trailblazing the wilderness. Yeah. It's AGU. It's too complex to understand it. All you can do is model it, squeezing the parameters, jamming on this AGU planet. I'm all in, baby, check it. I'm even AGU branded. I'm stranded like a cabin in the far, far north. I'm stranded on this planet as it warms hardcore. To make it through the landscape, it's gonna take some parkour. We need AGU scientists to help chart course, right? Starting yesterday with Michael Mann, climate wars, disinformation campaigns with an industrial source. Russian bots pump it up and amplify it on cyber. QAnon level conspiratorial climate deniers really believe it. Most could even pass a lie detector. Counter espionage. It's the new theme of the Stephen Schneider lecture. Whether Mike is testifying on the House Senate floor, humiliating hapless Australian senators, or revealing that crying Indian pollution campaign from the 1970s was an industry fake, shifting the blame from policy to individual shame. Even Elizabeth Warren was like, freaking give me a break. New York Times, that's enough about climate cuisine and how we can all help by avoiding driving in meat. And in the meantime, fossil fuel gets away scot-free. What we need is a freaking tight carbon pricing regime. I mean, hot damn, Mike Mann, that's the right plan. And I know because I've already got your book on my iPad. Unpublished galleys, baby. I'm giving his book love. Science rappers get those early chapters. That's the hookup. And that talk yesterday, that was yesterday. Oh my God, today was just as action-packed. I caught the aerosol convection interaction that Michael Jensen had. So many parallel talks. It's overwhelming. I need a pacer to track this convention experimentally. You can call it a tracer of cloud aerosol precipitation in the context of weather parameterization is the only acceptable measure. Lauren Zamora, I caught your bit on convection prevalence in aerosol kinematics and up in cloud microphysics. Oh, wow. It's mad complex, but it's citizen science, baby. I just forage like a polar bear in the AGU oppressive north, trying to figure out which climate model is best for us, evaluating hydrological sensitivity with Jesse Norris, eating plastics because human-caused climate change forced me, waiting for Hilda and Sunniva to disgorge me. You have to be strong to survive in places where it isn't warm, like Svalbard dwellers, like Hilda Fallon Storm. Yeah, 2 women alone beneath the stars in the sky, the beautiful northern lights. We got our heights and the ice, feeling small in the midst of that icy vastness and feeling sick at marine life, choking on microplastics. It's not all bleak though. The polar bear had a cub. There's hope for the future. AGU was feeling that love, yeah, which we need in life because it's tough sometimes until Sunniva was like, and then the cub died. Oh, that's so sad. Negativity isn't helpful, but hey, sometimes in nature, that's simply how it goes. They could build back up by reaching out, though, chatting by sat phone with 100 women chilling on the South Pole. And I don't know about y'all, but that fills me with new hope to know adventuring women are connecting on 2 poles. So let's have a toast. Fresh water right off the shelf in 5 hours just after these ice blocks all melt. These women are heroes, straight up northern exposing, teaching us all how to stop hating isolation from COVID. The vaccine is gonna be like waking up in the morning in March when you haven't seen sunlight since October. AGU, do your homework. Get the details precise on this planet of extremes. From wildfires to ice, there's not a single part of it that's not affected by climate. That's why we need policy that's straight up driven by science. That's the effect of warming on wildfire ignition. Ask Bin Chen. It's dryness that's the fire engine, driven by women and men, but not just them. We are all embedded in a political and economic system, and it's emissions that are driving this climate surge, this extra heat. Yeah, it's happening. The science is sure. The temperature's rising. The sea ice is dispersed. We need to moderate it. Like my man Guy Brisser, he asked Hilda and Sunniva, hey, let's get it precise. What's the value of participating in citizen science? And Sunniva was like, well, you got your average plebs and your smart people, and we get to act as a bridge. We can feed the public that knowledge, yeah. We break bread because it causes indigestion when coming from eggheads. It might sound callous, but she was dead serious, and that's also my job as a science lyricist. I listen close and then capture your work in passionate words when I'm rapping the verse. It's the revenge of the actual nerds, and if I make a hash of it and I get banished from Earth, just keep my personal beluga hunting cabin reserved up in Bamsebu, and I'll be happy to dwell in it and visit Sunniva and Hilda and go chill with the whale skeletons. But first I'll try to chart a way to move forth. New York to Canada to the true north, where the ice and the bears and the endless darkness is, where they fly drones to count all the reindeer carcasses. So this goes out to Hilda and Sunniva. Stay warm. We'll see you in the spring on the other side of the storm. And AGU, man, this place is too complex to understand it. All you can do is model it and squeeze it into parameters. So I'm jamming right now on this AGU planet, and I'm all in, baby. Check it. I'm AGU branded. I'm stranded like a cabin in the far, far north. I'm stranded on this planet as it warms. It's hardcore. To make it through the landscape, it's gonna take some parkour. We need AGU scientists to help chart a course. I'm stranded like a cabin in the far, far north. I'm stranded on this planet as it warms. Hardcore. To make it through this landscape, it's gonna take some parkour. We need AGU science to help us chart course. All right, that's the day 2 wrap. Thank you all very much for tuning in. I will be doing this again tomorrow after the plenary, and also Friday after the plenary, and on the 17th. So I'm just gonna try to forage and grab as much information, pack them into the wraps as I can. And if you're looking for something fun to do this evening at 6 p.m. Eastern and 3 p.m. Pacific, I will be hosting a virtually happy hour with some special guests, including Michael Mann and Chuck Nice, the comedian, and Stella Bowles, the youth environmentalist leader from Eastern Canada. So please do come in, join us in that happy hour if you want to come. And I will even be freestyling. If you put things in the chat, I'm going to rap about them in real time. And after the interviews, I'll be rapping about the topics in all of the in the happy hour. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Have a great rest of the day, and I will see you again soon. Thank you.